Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Warrior Lunch Break here on HBC TV 25. I'm Justin Barrientos. Thank you for joining us. It is our virtual Winona State Coaches Show, and we want to welcome Winona State Athletic Director Eric Schoh, Warrior softball coach Greg Jones, and Warrior softball senior pitcher Jordyn Kleman to the broadcast. And it's good to see you all again.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, we'll start out with Athletic Director Eric Schoh, and obviously, none of us have been through anything like this before, and I imagine there are difficulties all around, but can you give us kind of a state of Warrior athletics at this point?
Well, we're trying to keep things as normal as we can. With today's technology, things like this with Zoom, we're able to do most of that stuff as normal. Like yesterday, we had our monthly compliance rules education all staff meeting. So we had 40 some people on a Zoom meeting, and Assistant Athletic Director Brie Larson went through all the new rules that have been put in place related to COVID-19 and some other summer related activities, hour limitations and contact, things like that. Our regular administrative and head coaches meeting had that yesterday as well. So trying to do things as normal as we can, and try and check in with each other. The feedback I've gotten from our coaches, and maybe Joe and Greg can comment further on this later, but the online stuff has gone a lot better than I think most people had anticipated. So we're good. We're worried. I worry about what's going to happen over the summer and into the fall, but most of that are things that I can't control. So I try not to worry too much about it, but certainly trying to anticipate anything that we can be doing now to prepare ourselves for what those financial impacts and potential changes might bring to us.
All right, I want to turn the clock back to March, and we'll get everybody's thoughts on this, but we'll lead off with Eric. Winona State was on spring break. I think most of us were on spring break when everything kind of shut down in Minnesota. Tell me, what were your initial thoughts, and what were some of the things that were going on Winona State at the time that you learned that the NCAA was shutting down the championships and then the NSIC shut down the season?
Well, I think I went through all the stages that everybody else went through. At first, kind of like, hey, everybody relax. This is not going to be that big a deal, and it'll be fine. And then it went to, wow, this is, we started, the first thing I think that I remember was we had some student athletes and coaches down at the indoor track championships, national championships. And we got a notification that only families were going to be allowed to attend the event. And then we got a notification that no family members could, and then we got a notification that it was canceled. And that didn't happen all in the same day. But as all of that process was going on, it felt like, okay, well, we do some of these things, but at no point are we going to have to cancel everything. And then, there was a few things that were canceled, and the one that kind of, I think, made us all realize the impact that this is going to have and was having in the moment was when they canceled the NCAA basketball tournament, which generates, oh gosh, I saw the number the other day, I can't remember, millions and millions of dollars, and it's in Division II, we get about $30 million from that tournament to help run the division. And obviously that money is no longer there. So now projecting a $31 million budget deficit for Division II, and how they're making the Planning and Finance Committee are making plans for that. So I was actually in Florida with softball, tennis, and baseball. Got to see all of them compete. I came home on March 12th, the day that they made the announcement for those cancellations. I was actually in the O'Hare Airport when I saw it on TV, and I was like, wow, this is changing everything. Here we go. And so got home on Friday and had some conversations with Coach Jones. They were our last team in Florida. Walked through, do we get on a bus and just come home so it's just our team and protect ourselves? Do we fly as normal? And we did some checking here, and as they finished out down in Florida and came home as they normally would have. And then it started on that Sunday, all Winona State employees got a notification that if you had traveled domestically, you needed to self-quarantine for 14 days. So I've been doing this since March 16th, and then it was March 30th that the campus shut down, and spring break obviously led to a couple of more weeks along that. And so just trying to stay up to date with what the administrative committee for Division II is doing to make changes, and then the group of us with the NSIC and the things that we were looking at and anticipating as it related to recruiting and virtual accountable athletic related activities, so that student athletes could still connect with their teammates and their coaches and be able to get into some sort of workouts and things like that. It just kind of all blurs together when you sit back and try and think about, okay, how did we get to where we are? And I think we're finally at the stage now. We're not worried about how we got to where we are. We're now starting to think about, okay, forget about what we've lost. Let's move on and figure out what can we do to protect next year and next season.
All right, very good. Well, I'll definitely ask you about that in just a minute. But Coach Jones, Eric kind of led us into this really nicely. You have kind of a unique perspective in all of this because when you traveled down to Florida with the softball team, you had already been to, I think it was Illinois, and you played some games in Rochester. You had 19 games that were in. And I imagine when you went down to Florida, when you made that trip, you were fully expecting to come back, get ready for your trip to Missouri. And then all of this starts to happen while you're in Florida. Can you kind of walk us through when you heard these decisions and what the message to the team and even your coaching staff was when things started to shut down?
Yeah, and I think for everybody, obviously it was very unprecedented what we all went through. So there was no blueprint. But more than that, it was how fast it happened. And Wednesday was our off day. And every year on our off day, at the end of the day, we get together as a team to kind of do a head count, make sure everybody's back, and deal with the per diem money and all that kind of stuff. And as we were walking to where the meeting was going to be, Coach Tischer and I, we had just learned of the announcement of the NCAA basketball tournament was going to be played without fans. And that was kind of the first step. And we were having that discussion like, wow, how crazy is that going to be? And we get to this house, we're going to have this meeting, we're going through all of that kind of stuff. So this is on Wednesday. And at that point, it never crossed any of our minds that we still weren't going to play softball the rest of the year. And on Wednesday, at the end of the meeting, it was, okay, this is what time the fans leave, this is what uniform we're wearing, this is what time warm-ups are, all that kind of stuff. And that was the extent of it. So the next day is Thursday, we play. In between games, we win game one, and in between games, there started to be some whispers about some things that maybe was the campus going to close, or we're going to have an extended spring break, and they're getting bits and pieces of information on their phones in between games. And so you're just kind of trying to rein that in and say, hey, we got another softball game to play. Let's get focused on that, control the controllables. But even at that point, it never occurred to us, our season would be in jeopardy. So we go on and we play game two. We end up winning game two. We're literally walking to the vans in the parking lot, and kids are reading on their phone that the NCAA has now canceled all spring championships. And so they're asking me what that means. I don't know what that means. And so you're trying to process it. It's about a 15-minute van ride back to the houses. My wife is driving another van, and she calls me and she said, can you come to house 2 when you get done? Well, that's where some of our seniors were. And so I pull up. I've dropped my kids off in their spots, and I pull up and I had a couple of the other seniors in my van. So now all 5 seniors are standing there. As I get there, my phone rings, and I try to take a couple phone calls because I'm trying to process what I need to say to these kids. And so we're standing there in the driveway of this house, and I tell our 5 seniors that tomorrow is senior day, and it's going to be the last day that they play. And the emotion, the tears, the energy that came from that was outstanding and an amazing thing. And because you knew it meant something to them, you know how much the program meant to them, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you're trying to process how to fix it. As coaches, we want to fix things. And so how do you fix it? And so that was kind of the timetable that it all happened. And then the next day we get up and we play. You know, a lot of emotion, and trying to compartmentalize that emotion and get them to play softball and realize that this is hard, and I know it's hard, but we still want to go out on top, and we want to go out on our terms, and we want to play our style. And we finally kind of got to that point. We win 2 games, and then we celebrated our seniors. And again, I think it was the speed in which it was happening was more, you know, the challenge than anything else. You know, we try to educate our kids that circumstances don't have power over you, that some days traffic can really bother you, and other days traffic doesn't bother you. It's your state of mind. And but this was a big challenge. This was a big circumstance that we were trying to get over that hurdle. And I think we all just had to understand at that point that we needed to be a part of the solution. And being a part of that solution was understanding that the game had to go on pause, and that this was bigger than all of us. And so we got there eventually, but it was in 48 hours, that was a lot of emotion to handle and a lot of stuff to process for everyone.
All right, we're going to play a video that was shown, or that was posted on the Warrior Softball Twitter of what you guys did for the seniors in that last game in Florida. And I think kind of credit to you and the staff for being able to put something together to kind of have closure for your team, at least a little bit. Can you tell us what went through your mind during this ceremony, and then we'll kind of get Jordyn's thought on this as well?
Sure. You know, it was, you know, sometimes things just work out. And I had made the decision going into the day that I'm going to take all the seniors off at one time. You know, kind of like you can do in a basketball game, and you can pull everybody out at one time. And in softball, it really doesn't work that way. There's no natural break in which to do that. And but I had just made the decision, we're going to figure out how to do this. And you know, then there were some unique challenges to, well, I can't have 2 pitchers on the mound at the same time, and I have 2 senior pitchers. So how am I going to do that? But Jordyn was able to pitch game 1, and so I told her in game 2, here's what we're going to do, and I'm going to go make the change. And when I make the substitution, you're going to come out with it, because she was going to be in the dugout during game 2. So then she went out with me, and we were then able to make that substitution to bring everybody off at one time. It just worked out.
All right, and Jordyn, kind of your thoughts at the end of that game. Here you think, you know, possibly your career at Winona State is over, and it's short. What are some of the emotions that are going through your mind at this time?
It was a super emotional day, but it was awesome. Group, and that was something we always talked about, like our senior day, like all being able to leave the field together. And we didn't know how it would happen because obviously Alyssa and me were both pitchers, but 2 years ago we saw and they were people that we really looked up to, and we always like imagined our senior day being like that. So the fact that coach was able to do that for us was amazing. And even though we did have 2 pitchers, I still got to go out there and leave the field with the other 4 seniors, and that was just like under the circumstances the best way that it could have happened. So we were super grateful that we got to do that. All
right, and obviously for you, this has a good ending in that you're going to be able to come back next year for a 5th year. Tell us a little bit about that decision. From what I understand, it was a pretty easy one for you to come back once the NCAA said that seniors would have a chance to come back for their last year if they chose.
Yeah, it was. I'm super thankful for that. And like you said, it was a pretty easy decision because having your season just like taken away from you like that and not getting to go out on your own terms, kind of like, it's just not how you want to end your career, especially when you're a part of a program that means so much to you. So I'm just very thankful that I get to come back for another year. And I don't know, this decision was pretty easy. I talked to the other seniors a lot, and it stinks that like 2 of them don't get to come back, but I'm super thankful that Allie and Katie get to come back with me. And honestly, I've just been saying that it's a blessing that we get to have an extra year to play softball and come back and do the things that we love. And it's a thing that a lot of people don't get to do. So in my eyes, it's a blessing that we get to do it for an extra year.
All right, and for you, Jordyn, what had to be put on hold? Did you have any plans for what would have happened after this year had you not gotten this extra year to play softball?
I am going to be a teacher, so I have an extra semester to student teach in the fall. So I was already going to be like in school kind of for another like semester. So, and then after that, I would have started looking for a job, but it would have been the middle of the year. So now I'm just adding a semester of school, and then I'll look for a job after that. So it was like, there's some decisions and some things I had to do to make adjustments, but nothing too major because I had that extra semester already.
All right, Coach Jones, as Jordyn said, 3 of your seniors will come back, 2 will not be able to because they had plans after college. Talk us through that and about what your roster is going to look like, what kind of changes are going to have to be made because you're going to have 3 players that you didn't think that you would have for an extra year.
Yeah, I think first of all, just to Alyssa and Alexis who aren't coming back and how hard that was for them. They had plans already made with grad school and with Alyssa and Alexis we'll start with the police academy in a month down in Florida. And so they, life was moving for them and plans were already made. So I feel badly that they don't get a quote unquote do-over, that they don't get to come out one more time and do this with us. But, Alyssa probably had the best pitching performance she's ever had in the last game. And Alexa, she hit a home run her first ever at bat when she stepped on the field for us, and her last ever at bat in Florida, she hit a home run. And to be able to book in those kind of things is amazing. And so we're blessed that we had those kids as part of our program and we'll continue to play for them. And then going forward, it's interesting because it becomes a jigsaw puzzle. You do have some kids back that normally you wouldn't have them back for a 5th year, and so it's a really positive thing that you're bringing back that type of leadership, that type of passion, that type of energy back into your program. But as a coach, you're always building this thing, and it's always kind of this jigsaw puzzle that you're putting together, both financially and scholarships, and by how you're seeing development happen and those types of things. And so the roster will be a little bit bigger next year. We'll have 24, 25 kids on a roster, which is bigger than we've ever had. So you're trying to manage some of those things. You've got a big freshman class coming in. Now you've got an extended senior class. So it's a little bit different, but it's still a great opportunity. The news to me that those kids wanted to come back was enormous for us and as a program. We wouldn't have it any other way. And I think everybody within the organization is excited about it. So it's not going to block anything. It doesn't hold anything up or change anything. For us, it's business as usual. We just hope that we can get back on campus in the fall. And get back on the field. These kids got something taken away from them, and there's a difference between happiness and fulfillment, and I think playing this game fulfills them. It doesn't just make them happy, and we try to tell them the game doesn't define who they are, but it does fulfill them, and it makes them feel a part of something and a part of the bigger community in Winona, a part of the campus at Winona State. And so we're hoping we can get them all back on the field to kind of get doing with the hub again, and then as coaches, so we can kind of see how this jigsaw puzzle is going to work. And right in the middle of our chess match, somebody turned the board upside down, and so now we got to start all over again and put this thing all back together. But having those 3 kids back is a big part of what we do.
All right, and Eric, I don't know, was there any lobbying that had to be done with the NCAA, or was this kind of a decision that they came up on their own saying, these seniors had this season taken away from them, they should get this year back? Was there any discussion, or was this just a thing from the NCAA?
Well, the day-to-day operations of Division II are run by the Management Council, and there's an administrative committee that's a part of that Management Council. Members of Management Council make up this administrative committee. So they began having emergency meetings to look at, okay, what does this mean going forward? And that's where the decision was made. They passed that emergency legislation. I believe Division II was the first to extend the eligibility for the student athletes because the season was taken away. And it's not just the seniors. this year's freshman class will be freshmen again, eligibility-wise, next year. So when Coach Jones talks about bringing in a big freshman class, you add that to the existing freshman class, and someday those are all going to be seniors. And that's a whole other thing that you got to try and manage so that you're not, get yourself in a perpetual cycle every 4 years where you've got this huge class graduating and you got to replace. And but he's good at what he does and he'll figure it out. But so it is everybody. It came from that administrative committee. I think we had our decision out about that 2 weeks prior to Division I. I'm a little less familiar with what their process is, but I think the approach, a few years ago, maybe a decade ago now, I'm getting older. The NCAA became the kinder, gentler NCAA and was more about the kids and trying to provide them with good experiences. So I think the NCAA has taken that approach, and I know here at Winona State University, their approach by our administration has been to hold the students harmless, not just the student athletes, but all Winona State students. So trying to do everything that we can to make this less difficult than it already is for them as they go forward. But it was that same administrative committee then that acted on the recruiting, the recruiting dead period, and when you could offer financial aid again, and all of those things. So it just kind of came out piece by piece, but trying to deal with the most pressing things at the beginning. And I think they did a really good job. I think those people need to be applauded, but you're sitting there midway through your spring semester. What does this mean for me next year? I think it was really important that was the first decision that came out of that group, that, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to let them, and it impacts, financial aid and team equivalencies and, things like that. And I think they got it right in every case, allowing everybody in the spring sports to have another year. I think the winter sports, I feel bad for those that were moving on and progressing in the championship process, but quite honestly, it was 80-90% of the schools had completed their seasons. Like in the sport of basketball, we had completed men's, women's basketball. There were still some that were alive and competing in championships. So I don't think restarting it for everybody made sense in that. You had to draw a line somewhere and do it. So, and they're still meeting. That administrative committee meets weekly and talks about eligibility issues and things like that, because there may be some continuing eligibility and initial eligibility issues that come up, with graduating high school seniors and things like that. So they're on it and doing a good job for us.
All right. Coach Jones, said they want to get back out in the field. Is there any indication yet from the NCAA or, from the NSIC that when players might be able to get back out? I assume a lot of it has to do with what the governor says about the stay-at-home order, but how do things look now as you head towards the summer and you look to plan for the fall season?
Well, I think the biggest issue for our student athletes for the summer is as they go into their summer workouts, which are all voluntary, but the ones that we have work hard and put in a lot of time and effort over the summer. I think the biggest issue is for them to find facilities to be able to go do that stuff. YMCAs are closed and gyms are closed, and so hopefully some of those things start to open back up so that they can have a normal summer break time so that they can be doing those things. From an NCAA and NSIC standpoint, there's a working group that's been formed through the Sports Science Institute, the medical branch of the NCAA, and it's got a bunch of people on it. And they're going to make recommendations about what fall practice and competitions might look like as far as capacity for fans and things like that. But, I was joking with somebody the other day. I mean, we can't have social distancing in sports. I mean, imagine watching a basketball game when you got to leave the person with the ball 6 feet away from you. There can be a lot of scoring. I like that. But coaches and players like defense and rebounding and stuff like that for some reason. I like to watch the ball go through the hoop. So we'll have to see what it's all over the board. You'll read some reports that say there won't be any sporting activities at any level, youth through professional, still in 2020. And so we're looking at January as a possibility. I think that's probably the extreme and hopefully the worst case scenario, but I suppose it is a possibility. And I'm hopeful that we can be back on on campus and in classes, because that'll be the first indicator that we can have practices and then hopefully have games. But we got 16 schools in our league. What if one school says, yeah, we're going online and we won't be able to compete? What does that do? And so you sit here and you can run through an infinite amount of scenarios, sport by sport, as you go through this. And you just can't control that. We've just got to be patient and see what the Sports Science Institute comes up with, and what the state of Minnesota does, and what that does to other members of our league, being in Iowa, Nebraska, and both of the Dakotas. And I think we've got a bunch of smart people that are trying to work on this, and I think they'll get it right, as they've done so far.
All right. Well, as Eric said, people are trying to stay active. So Jordyn, for you, how have you been able to try to stay active and get some softball workouts in during this quarantine?
Chasing that stray dog through your neighborhood, right?
Yeah, we do have a stray dog. But I have a younger sister who's going to play volleyball at UW Milwaukee, so we've kind of been working out together and pushing each other in that way, going for runs to stay in shape, and kind of mixing our lifts together, because she got some from her school and I got some from our trainer, Eric. So we kind of been mashing those together and then trying to push each other that way. And then we kind of have a deal where, if she plays catch with me, I'll bump around to volleyball with her. So we've just been staying in shape that way. But I've definitely been missing being with my teammates and being able to practice and pitching to a real catcher. And I've also been missing workouts, because it's not the same to be doing home workouts as opposed to being in a gym and stuff like that. So we've been finding ways to stay active, but it's not the same as being at Winona State and being with your team.
And then Coach Jones, for you, not being able to coach, not being able to go out to recruit, not being able to really watch much of anything, how are you keeping your coaching skills kind of honed during this quarantine?
Well, I can tell you it's not in my DNA to sit at my kitchen counter every day and just answer emails. But that's what I can do. And to keep my coaching skills honed, I play my son on his PS4 on MLB The Show. And so I can at least manage games. And it's hard. We try to stay in touch with our kids, yet you're trying not to pester them too much. And it's hard because you're used to having them 4 hours a day. And yet, this has been really hard on them, not only emotionally, but now trying to handle the new distance learning. And so we've tried to have a couple Zoom meetings with the team just to check in with them, pass along some workouts that maybe they can do, things of that nature. And sometimes we make excuses so we don't have to make changes. And the fact of the matter is we've got to make changes right now. Everything is different, and we've all got to adjust. And so it's not an excuse, next fall or next spring or next January, whenever we can finally get back after it, that we aren't in shape. We just got to be able to find something to do to get ourselves there. But realize this isn't a Winona State thing. This is every team in the country. We're all going to start from scratch, ground zero when we get going again. We're all going to feel like we're behind, but at this point, I just look forward to the opportunity to get together and be able to do what we love. The silver lining to this for me personally is the spring isn't a time you get to spend a lot of time with family. And I'm blessed that my wife helps me coach, and my kids are very involved, and my parents are able to travel to a lot of games. And, so I see my family a lot, but I'm never in a good mood, and I'm always stressed, and I'm going to bed late and getting up early and all those kind of things. And now we eat dinner every night at 6 o'clock, and we watch Netflix together every night, and so we take the dog for a walk every night. And so there's been some really good things that have come out of this for the Jones clan that spring normally doesn't provide, and so we'll look at those things and see them as positives. And then next year, hopefully, we're back on the field building positive memories on the field again.
All right. Well, I don't know about you, but this time has just flown by. We're actually out of time here. So thank you for joining us this week. And we'll see you guys on the softball field hopefully soon. And we'll see all of you who are watching today next week for Warrior Lunch Break. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.